Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's live webinar, Why Account-Based Marketing is Inevitable, brought to you by the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions team. My name is Renee Lowe, Marketing Specialist on the Demand Gen team here at LinkedIn, and before we get started, I wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, there is no dial-in number. All audio will stream through your computer speakers. If you have technical difficulties during the session, please try refreshing your screen. To learn more, we've also added additional resources in the resources box of your console. There's a link to the blog and then also a link to our Sophisticated Marketers crash course to account-based marketing. Finally, feel free to use the Q&A box on your console to ask questions throughout the webinar. We'll do our best to get to all of them. We will also be sharing both the recording and the slides from today's session with you via email within the next few days, so don't worry about taking too many notes right now. Finally, at the end of the webinar, you'll have the opportunity to fill out our survey. Please take the time to fill it out. Your feedback is valuable to us, and we want to make sure that your experience with us continues to get better. Now, I'm very excited to hand it off to our first speaker, who will introduce the remainder of our speakers, Sean Callahan. Take it away, Sean.
Thanks a lot, Renee. So as Renee said, I'm Sean Callahan. I'm going to be moderating this webinar today. I'm the Senior Manager of Content Marketing at LinkedIn. And in a few moments, I'll be setting the stage for the two people you really came to hear on this webinar. That's Dorothea Gosling, who is Global Head of Pursuit Marketing at DXC Technology, and also John Miller, who's the CEO and co-founder of Engagio. These two are experts on account-based marketing, so you've come to the right place, and they're going to share some valuable and actionable insight into ABM and how you can apply it at your company. But before we get to the presentations from Dorothea and John, which I will tell you will be followed by an extensive Q&A segment at the end, so start writing down and submitting your questions. I want to set the stage on why ABM has become so crucial, so unavoidable, so prevalent, particularly for B2B marketers. But first, we wanted to do a poll question and ask you about the level of account-based marketing at your company. So start answering this question here that you can see on the screen. How long have you been using account-based marketing? And the answers are, we haven't started, we're preparing a pilot program, less than a year, 1 to 2 years, or more than 2 years. So, John, do you have a guess on from your background, where the audience is going to stand on how they've been using account-based marketing?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is for most companies, this is still new and probably still pretty experimental. I expect we're going to see a lot of people in preparing pilot programs or less than a year.
Okay. Dorothea, how about you? You got a sense of where companies stand in adapting ABM?
I'm almost with John on that one. I'd say less than a year to 1 to 2 years. But I'd agree with John. Folks are still, setting out and getting their heads around it.
All right, so let's see where we stand. Almost 50% haven't started. 24% starting a pilot program, and more than 2 years, only 14.3%. So I think that gives us an idea of where people are standing right now. So let's talk about ABM and some of the trends that are driving it. ABM, as many argue rightly, is nothing new. Marketers have been attempting to target specific accounts or specific kinds of accounts with tailored marketing messages for a very long time. That's basically what B2B marketing is in some sense. But what's changed is the technological capabilities, which have made ABM not only really common and increasingly common, but essentially mandatory for a lot of businesses. And with ABM, marketers can not only reach decision makers, but also a host of influencers within companies, and they can do that with confidence and precision that weren't previously available. So there are 4 trends that I see driving the rising importance of ABM, and I'm going to quickly address these 4. First is the customer is in control. The second is the relevance imperative of content marketing. The third is the rise of data-driven marketing, and the fourth is the importance of sales marketing alignment. So first, let's address the customer is in control. The internet and the wide availability of data and information has really leveled the playing field for salespeople and the customers they serve. The consumer now has as much information as the seller, and I think the automotive industry really demonstrates that better than any other. It used to be that you'd go in and try and buy a car, and the dealer salesperson had all the information. It was really an asymmetric kind of knowledge situation, and the advantage that the dealer had was overwhelming. But now, with the internet, even sort of the least enterprising car buyer can find the information like the invoice price, how the car is performing on the market, et cetera, and availability of that car in the area, can find that almost immediately on the web. And the end result is the customer, not only in the automotive industry, but almost every industry out there, has more power than ever. So the rise of data-driven marketing. It may seem like a tall order to deliver the right message to the right time to the right person, but data has made that easier for marketers to do. And using data, the kind of data contained in our email databases, the kind of data that's gathered in our retargeting efforts, and the kind of data available in a simple LinkedIn profile, with that, marketers can identify their prospects and customers more precisely than ever. And when this data, a company using ABM techniques can tailor messages and deliver relevant content to decision makers and influencers. So there is a relevance imperative in content marketing these days, and ABM is impacted by this. Your prospects out there are overwhelmed with marketing messages. In the end, they only want relevant information that will help them with where they are in the buying process, and they don't want to be bombarded with ads or any kind of messages that's meant for somebody else. But that doesn't mean they don't want to be exposed to some kinds of marketing messages. They just want the right information at the right time in the right format. And this means that marketers like you must deliver that information tailored to specific companies and to specific departments. And LinkedIn data shows that most industries have 4 or 5 internal departments, departments like finance or HR or engineering, that are influencing buying decisions. And your marketing and your content must strive to deliver the right information, the right time, the right format for the buyer and influencer you're reaching. So trend number 4 is the reality of sales marketing alignment. And so despite a reputation for fighting like the Hatfields and McCoys, marketing and salespeople these days are more closely aligned than you might think. We did some research at LinkedIn, and we found that almost 80% of marketers and salespeople agree right now that there's a culture of collaboration between the two departments at their company. 70% in that same survey said that sales and marketing alignment leads to better customer buying experience, and 54% said it boosts financial performance. This increased emphasis on sales marketing alignment is partially based on the simple fact that technology, which we talked about here, has both required more alignment and made collaboration more productive. The simple fact of installing a CRM system or marketing automation, when it's done right, the sales and marketing team work together to make sure that installation goes correctly and is most valuable for both departments. And I'll also say the evolution of the customer journey requires sales and marketing alignment, and the fact that we can deliver appropriate content and identify leads more accurately and more effectively than ever makes sales marketing collaboration a no-brainer. And a key part of this collaboration is more account-based marketing. So I've talked about the trends that are shaping the rise of ABM, and I'm going to turn it over to John Miller here in a few seconds, but I first wanted to say that ABM comes in many different shapes and sizes, and John and Dorothea are going to talk a little bit about one-to-one account-based marketing, one-to-few account-based marketing, and one-to-many account-based marketing. One-to-one is where we're talking about where you have 5 to 50 accounts that you're targeting. 1 to few is where you have as many as a few hundred, and 1 to many is where we're talking in the thousands. So I'm going to turn it over to John first, and they're going to show you how account-based marketing works in practice and how you can take advantage of it in your own business. But first, I wanted to get another poll question here. And so this question is, of the people who are using ABM, has it been successful? Is it too early to tell? It hasn't succeeded? It's doing okay? It's doing well? Or it's changed our lives for the better? So, Dorothea, I'll ask you first. What's your sense of how well marketers are finding ABM is performing?
Given the answer to the first question, I would say it's too early to tell.
Right. John, how about you?
Well, I think if, the people if only people who are doing it answer, I think we're going to hear, it's working really well. It's changed lives for the better. But for the people who aren't doing it yet, obviously it's too early to tell.
All right. Well, let's see what we got here. So yeah, about 2/3 have said it's too early to tell. Let's see about it's doing well and it's changed our lives for the better. That number pretty much matches up with the people who've been doing it for more than 2 years, about 14 or 15%. So John, if you're ready to take it away and talk a little bit about your perspective on account-based marketing, we'd love to hear what you have to say.
That sounds great. So, I want to just start with sort of the framework here, that Sean alluded to, that there are different styles of account-based marketing. Not all ABM is the same, and it depends a lot on the size of the deals you're going after. So, the top style is, I call it Tier 1 or strategic ABM. This is sort of in the classic definition from the ITSMA, where you treat each account as a market of one. And the idea is that, if you're DXC and you're selling billion-dollar deals to Toyota, well, Toyota has a bigger gross domestic product than many countries do. And so you would think about, literally a plan for Toyota in much the same way as you would think about your plan for how you enter a new market like Germany. Incredibly effective style of ABM. This is the style that the ITSMA says has a better ROI than any other B2B marketing tactic, but it's hard to scale. It's pretty manual. You're probably going to count the number of these one-to-one strategic accounts on your hands and toes. And that's why in the last few years we've seen the rise of some other styles of ABM. There's the Tier 2 or the scale style, or a one-to-few. This is where you're still going to treat each account with its own personalized, relevant touch, because that's what ABM is largely about, focusing and being more relevant. But because it's a lower level of research and a lower level of customization, you can scale to the hundreds of accounts. I like to use an analogy to explain this. In Tier 1, you might create a completely custom white paper for that account. In Tier 2, you might just take an existing industry-specific white paper, put the client's logo on the cover, and write a custom first paragraph and last paragraph. That's the difference between sort of the one-to-one and the one-to-few style. And then you have Tier 3, what I call programmatic ABM, or ultimately very high scale or one-to-many. And here, each account might not get an individualized, personalized touch, but you're still targeting your efforts and your tactics onto a named list of accounts. But because there's basically very little personalization, this can scale, into the thousands or even many thousands, of accounts. So this is an important framework because, today I'm going to be talking about Tier 2 and Tier 3, the one-to-few and one-to-many, and then I'll hand things over to Dorothea to talk about the Tier 1 approach. So let's dive into this. For the Tier 2 and Tier 3, this is where technology is required. You can't scale without the right systems in place. And the number one challenge you have when it comes to your systems is the fact that your account data is all over the map. The most fundamental problem is if you use Salesforce.com that your leads don't tie to your accounts. Anybody who's listening on the webinar or spent any time with Salesforce knows this pain. A new lead comes in, and because it doesn't tie the account, you don't even know where to route it. If there's an existing open opportunity, for example, you don't know to route it to the salesperson and not the SDR. But there's other challenges too. Your marketing automation systems like Marketo and Eloqua, are primarily lead-based. So you can't really roll up that activity at the account level. Same for your corporate email and anonymous web activity. Salespeople don't even know who's already sent emails to that same account. And so the first thing you've got to do ABM at any kind of scale is to build an account foundation that takes data from all those systems and uses what I call lead-to-account matching. Basically an algorithm that ties the leads to the right account so you can really aggregate the information at the account level and then push that back out where it's needed, whether it's Salesforce or LinkedIn or other tools. Once you have the foundation in place, now you're ready to start engaging. You're ready to reach out to the accounts. There's lots of ways you can do that. And I just wanted to share how we're doing it here at Engagio, with a proven play that works for us. So, this is a play that we run to hundreds of accounts. Our goal is to get a meeting with an account that we want. So we begin by buying some ads that target the account, and I'll show you the data in a second. We actually only buy the ads for half the accounts, so we can test the actual effectiveness. And then this is a pretty standard campaign. We send a package. The package, as you can see here, has signed copies of some of my books or an ebook version of it on a Kindle, some socks that we then want the recipient to go hand out to other people at the account. The idea of that is that we're trying to create water cooler or hallway conversations about Engagio. And there's a handwritten note. So again, you can kind of see how this is a one-to-few approach. When the package is sent, we also have the SDR send an email to the person to expect it. When the package gets delivered, the SDR sends a very, very customized email for that account. And that's followed by a series of phone calls and so on. If you notice down at day 10, if the person hasn't responded to any of that, I actually send an email. It's not surprising that the email from me is actually the one that often gets the response, as opposed to all the prior emails, from the sales development rep. So a play like this works. We've done it 350 times, and we have set up qualified meetings at 21% of those accounts, which is pretty extraordinary considering these are starting as somewhat cold accounts, and our goal is to get the meeting. Now, if you look down at the meeting rates, you'll see that whether we send the book and the Kindle, that doesn't seem to really have any impact. But neither does having ads. At this point, we see no lift for buying ads at the account in terms of our ability to get a meeting at the account. And I think this is important because a lot of people, when they're starting to do ABM at scale, start thinking, well, I'll just do ABM advertising. And I've got nothing against ABM advertising. It's important, but it's not sufficient. I think you really need to do these other things as well. I will point out, if you look at the bottom right, that buying the ads does increase web traffic. It's just not clear that it actually generates meetings or pipeline. What is generating meetings and pipeline is marketing and sales development working together, to sort of in an integrated way. But this integration is hard. It requires a lot of coordination with sales. Did they approve the list? Did they actually send their emails? Were the emails any good? Is any of this trackable? And that's where, again, I think the technology starts to really enable this to happen at scale using something that we call marketing orchestration. In marketing orchestration, the marketer is the orchestra conductor, making sure that all the other pieces are working together in harmony, doing the right thing at the right time. It's not complete automation. I know marketing automation, and marketing automation works great, when you're just net fishing, where you're going after lots of fish, but you don't care which ones you catch. Very scalable, but no personalization. In orchestration, you're bringing some of the process automation to give the scale, but you're also bringing humans in at the right time to get that extra lift and impact. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. So this is, this is that email 10 on day 10 that I just talked to you about, where the email, this is the ABM play, but the email now comes from me. And in this, you'll see the email comes from me, but that it has gotten some personalization. In this case, it's been personalized based on who I might know in common with that person, leveraging LinkedIn data. Now, I didn't do that personalization. My SDR did it for me. All I need to do is hit approve. And in fact, I was able to do that from a beach in Mexico, which is pretty cool. So this is just an example of that coordination of delivering personalization at scale, touches from executives in a very streamlined, orchestrated way. And you can do this kind of play at every stage of the customer journey. I just showed you an example of using it to get into new accounts, but you can also do it to nurture existing opportunities and do cross-sell expansion. Just a minute on this idea of deal nurturing. So marketers have learned over the last 10 years to do lead nurturing to close the gap between when a lead gets created or response happens, but before it's actually ready for sales. But at many companies, as soon as you actually pass that lead over to sales and create the opportunity, marketing gets shut off. There's no more marketing happening anymore. But the sales team, rightly so, focuses on the deals that are about to close further in the funnel. And so deals that are opportunities that are kind of early sometimes stall out or get lost. And that kind of sucks if you're a marketer who spent all that time and energy creating that opportunity. So deal nurturing is just like regular old lead nurturing in that you're keeping in touch with people from the account, but in this case, you're letting the salesperson review and approve the emails before they go out. So the salesperson maintains control over the account and control over the message, which is that human touch, but you get the scalability and process automation to really make it work at scale. The last point I want to touch on before handing things over to Dorothea when it comes into talking about ABM at scale for the Tier 2 and Tier 3 is that your metrics are going to be different. Anybody who's lived, in demand gen for the last 10 years knows and probably breathes the Serious Decisions waterfall. And we were all really excited this year when Serious Decisions launched their new waterfall for 2017, which is fundamentally an account-based waterfall. It's not about leads suddenly magically turning into accounts at some point in the funnel. Now it's accounts and buying centers moving every step through the way. And this really reflects that when we do ABM, our metrics need to change. In particular, when you're being account-based, it's not just about the quantity. Because in many cases, your quantity is going to go down as you start focusing. And instead, it becomes more about the quality. Am I engaging with the right people at the right accounts? And do I have a relationship? And so we think that time is a really great way to measure engagement, right? Do the right people at the right account spend time with us? And the more time you spend, the better. So if you listen to me talk on a webinar for 20 minutes, that's 20 minutes of engagement. That's probably better than if you just come to my website, and glance through an ebook. That's maybe only 5 minutes. So by looking at what you do, we can actually start to track and quantify engagement. We do that at Engagio. So using the kinds of programs I just showed you over the last 12 months, we were able to drive a greater than 10x increase in engagement at our target accounts. And this is a great way to measure results before you even can show pipeline, because it can take a long time to create pipeline, but this is an early indicator of success. And the other metrics that we're using to track account-based measurement success is very in line with the Serious Decisions waterfall. We're using something called Marketing Qualified Accounts, or MQAs, as opposed to MQLs, Marketing Qualified Leads. And again, this is just a great way to sort of identify when an account is engaging with us And when they do engage with us, we can follow up not necessarily with the junior person who happened to download the white paper, or the 3 junior people who happened to download the white paper. We can follow up with all of them, with the right person, the decision maker, as appropriate. So many of you said that you're new to ABM, you haven't done this yet. So I'm going to wrap my last point with how do I get started? What is the first thing I should do if I want to do ABM? That's where many of you are. So in summary, the first thing you should do is build your account foundation. You can't be account-based if you can't look at your data from an account-centric lens. At a minimum, that requires lead to account matching. Then establish your baseline. Where are you? And then third, start with a simple integrated play. And you read on the slide, it talks about buying a scale, buying a treadmill. If you want to get in shape, what are you going to do? Right? Well, first of all, you need to buy a scale so you know how much you weigh and you know if you're making any progress. And you're also going to buy a treadmill or do something else to actually get in shape. You need to be doing both of those to really drive success. So that was a lot of information. I'm going to hand things back to Sean now so he can introduce another poll and Dorothea. And then I look forward to questions at the end.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, John. That was great. We have one more poll question for you out there. And so the question is, how would you describe sales and marketing alignment at your company? We fight like cats and dogs is the first answer. We tolerate each other, we work well together, or we're living the dream. So, Dorothea, where do you think folks are going to end up on this question?
I'll go for the we fight like cats and dogs answer.
Okay. All right. So maybe you're a little pessimistic. John, how about you? Where do you?
Well, I think the bigger the company, the harder this is. So I'm not surprised that Dorothea's perspective from a big company is that. I bet we're a little bit more in the middle here because there's probably distribution of company sizes on the line.
Okay. Well, let's see where we stand. Well, probably, if John's correct, not many big companies. I think that sales and marketing get along better than we've been led to believe. And I think this response shows that. But so Dorothea, you're up next to talk about your approach to account-based marketing and pursuit marketing. So are you ready to go?
I am indeed. Now, I had a little technical hiccup, but it seems to be working now. So yes, I am. Thank you. And thanks for having me. Okay. My answer was a little tongue-in-cheek. We work quite well with our sales colleagues here, and going back to some of the cues that John gave earlier on, why are we focusing on account-based marketing? Why does it make sense? Why now? And really, whether you're looking at statistics from ITSMA or from Serious Decisions, 84% of the companies they poll report higher returns on investment, on their marketing investment, using ABM. And as a result of that and of the activities around ABM, marketing is actually being seen as a trusted advisor to sales, and that's really important. It's a meeting of minds versus marketing just executing a service for sales. You both are equal players in this market and in this relationship, and you both add value playing your positions. The trigger for us was, and that's pretty very similar for many other companies too, that when we embarked on a transformation journey about 4 years ago, we analyzed our customer base, and to probably no great surprise to you, we found that 80% of our revenue came from 20% of our customer base. And we then analyzed that further and looked at, okay, what is happening with those customers? What have we sold into there, and what do we find? And DXC is we're a very large, the world's largest IT services provider, and we found that in most of those accounts we were only known for one thing, be that application management or be that IT outsourcing, but very rarely did our clients use the entire spectrum of our services, or were they familiar with it? So that meant we had an immense potential to cross-sell, upsell into existing accounts, which of course also is cheaper than to acquire net new accounts. So that was one of the reasons why we actually focus on account-based marketing. And to John's slide earlier, there are different approaches to account-based marketing. You can play one-to-many, where you really target thousands of accounts, and that's highly automated. You have one-to-few, where we cluster by industry, for example, and work with our regions with the demand center support. And you can do the one-to-one marketing. We actually started out by one-to-few, enabled one-to-many, and after a few years decided that my team would certainly, but the core focus would be on the one-to-one, because our goal was to also up our win rate. For that, we wanted to surround the biggest and most important accounts and large deals with very bespoke marketing activities. So when you looked at our mix, we at any point in time have around 30 plus large accounts or strategic pursuits in the works through our pursuit marketing team, and 300 plus named accounts in the one-to-few cluster. And here we really do a mix, like John mentioned, we do some sort of bespoke, but at the one-to-one end, it's highly bespoke, and I'll show you an example a little later in the deck. To enable that, we took a fairly a structured approach. We started by assessing what we wanted to do, what the goal would be, and then looked at the landscape that we had. What technology landscape did we have? What people and processes did we already have to actually start us out on the journey? And then we started by adapting our technology and our tech base to actually deliver things for marketing. And an example here is we were already, the team I work in is our global brand digital and demand team. And a colleague of mine has built an amazing dashboard that shows us our entire marketing stats, be that at a campaign level or be that at a site level, a page level. We can track our leads to cash. We know at any given point in time how much revenue marketing has contributed, what our sales accepted leads are, and how any specific campaign is performing. What wasn't happening when I joined the team was that we looked at this from an account perspective. So now we enhance the dashboard to give us statistics that show us how and where accounts engage on our website. And of course, we're working with partners to enable that. Then we looked at people and processes. From the outset, we realized that we decided that we wanted to build or take a center of excellence approach. That means, yes, there are a few people at the core of the organization, the team that works with me, who own the subject matter, but not only do we focus on those large accounts, we're constantly looking to develop and then deliver and deploy processes, systems, best practice that aren't just used by this team, but really can be adopted by the wider marketing organization in the regions, for example, to adapt to their programs. So we always had scale in mind, even though we kept this focus on the high touch, highly customized accounts. Then, of course, yes, you do need creativity, and you'll see that a little more when I talk about the next slide, how we surround a deal. And then ultimately, it's all about content, relevant content. You hear lots of people say content is king, and nothing really gets my hackles up more, because anything is content. Anything you put online, give to someone is content, but that doesn't make it relevant. So a lot of thought needs to go into what you present to someone, how you present it, and through whom, and which channel you use. And that's really, really important. That's why it sits at the top of our pyramid. All these other things are enablers, but if you get that content piece wrong, specifically where you're working at the top tip of this pyramid, that can be fatal. It's great when, as a marketer, you've collaborated and teamed up with sales and won a large deal or helped win an extension in an account, but it's not a good place to be if your activity was so off cue and so uncoordinated with sales that it actually caused the opposite. So the interlock between marketing sales is hugely important, and we as a team do nothing that hasn't been agreed with sales and endorsed by them. They're vetted, they've bought into it, and only then does it go out. There's just too much riding on it. And if I go to the scenario that I wanted to paint around the large pursuit, imagine a deal worth several $100 million. And when we start engaging with the deal teams, it's all about identifying what the deal team knows, how much do we as a company know about this account, how much insights do we have, on how much insight do we have to generate. We could be analyzing a buying center. And when we do that, we don't just ask for, we don't just look at, okay, someone is a buyer. We're trying to really understand the individual, because even, or particularly on those large deals, there's an awful lot riding on it for the individuals who make the decisions. So the better you understand where they're coming from, not just because they're a CFO or the chief risk officer, but because of where they are in their career, what their personal preferences might be, what they stand for. Only when you know all of that and can contextualize it, are you able to really present something relevant to them. So we spend quite a lot of time upfront working with the sales team and working with in-house and external research sources to really get a solid understanding of the account that we're targeting. And then, of course, we're developing a plan. And in the case of a pursuit, these plans are very much hinged on the pursuit and on the deal timeline. To give you an example, these deals are often managed or accompanied by third-party advisors. And it's almost, you can almost say it's choreographed. You start with a request for information, then that'll give, that's a stage at which many of the companies that are putting out a tender will still try and form their opinion of what is out there in the market that addresses their problem. If you as an ABMer and as a sales team have done your job right, you have kind of hopefully maybe avoided this stage and gotten to RFP and influenced the content of the RFP, then you're doing great. If that hasn't happened, you are kind of really tied to this timeline and what needs to be done at each stage. There will be orals where you have to present. There will be a down select where they reduce the number of folks who bid, companies who bid, until eventually there might be a selection to just one or two companies for a final beauty contest, and ultimately the negotiations before you have a contract signature. Many of those deals are also gated in as much as certain marketing activities are no longer permissible. A direct outreach, not just to the buying center, but to others in that company may be forbidden, and that then determines the tactics you develop. So we might choose a social soft outreach. We then look at potentially personalized e-targeting at a company level, or by using geofencing to surround that account, get awareness for our company, get awareness for what we're offering, but at the same time staying away from anything that might get us into trouble or might get us eliminated from the deal. We look at other forms of high-touch engagement, and then we also work with the account and the deal team on the presentation of the whole of the deal documents. When we work with them, we'll find out where the deal teams are, the win teams are, and what they may want to, how they want to position the team and our offering to differentiate us from the competition. So we help them visualize that by either bringing in a creative agency or in-house creators, so that not only are the traditional, what I call traditional but highly focused marketing activities in tune with what we want to achieve, but the deal team itself also expresses what they're looking to sell in a very coherent form that's underpinned by visuals that resonate their messaging. And then we go as far as orals. They support, and orals are when your team is invited by the buyer to present your solution to them and to part of the buying center. And this is really about coaching the team in the presentation, making sure that the key message points come across, that again, the visuals are in line with the messages we want to send. This is where we also vet whether what we're presenting really maps back to the core points that we want to get across and that the key elements of the deal that we need to address. So there's a lot of checks and balances, and throughout this we will surround the deal at key points with marketing activities. This can be a billboard during a time of an orals visit or a reference visit at one of our offices. This can be surrounding a head office location in the run-up to a decision point with banners, with when I mean banners, bus shelter ads, to physical out-of-home advertising, or also geofence advertising. We use LinkedIn sponsored updates extensively in order to position thought leaders and also a narrative that surrounds the deal. And all that together then help, hopefully, get us across the finish line as the winner and get winning the deal. So you see, there are a lot of parallel strands. There are a lot of different elements to this. Like I said, there's LinkedIn sponsored updates that we use, banner ads, physical out of home, not so much the direct mail pieces or the things we send out, because that might eliminate us. This is something that our friends and colleagues in the regions will do, because there it's often about expanding initial accounts where there isn't a large deal in progress, where we're actually trying to get to that point. And all those things are always tightly coordinated with our colleagues in sales. And then, why is this repeating? I'm seeing the same slide again. Okay, here, the specific results. So how has this panned out for us? We kicked off the pursuit marketing, ABM, many years ago, pursuit marketing just under 2 years ago. And as a result, this is no longer optional for large deals. So where we have a large pursuit in progress, someone from my team will be assigned, as long as we have bandwidth. We're a limited resource, and scarcity is a good thing in this instance, because the sales teams we work with are highly engaged, and they know we're not just on tap. They have to also adhere to a certain set of rules of engagement by letting us play ball at eye level, giving us access to all information that we need in order to be successful. So it's no longer optional. A lot of the companies, 67% of the companies we target, are more engaged. This is at the one to few level. So we also measure the lift in page views during those pursuits, and that has been significant, where we've driven traffic to our website. Our win rates are up with expectations. The VP who led that department announced that when we work with marketing, we win more, and I think that's a great endorsement from someone in sales to give us. And externally, the program has been endorsed for a number of different years in a row now by Serious Decisions, and we won the ROI award this year, which was great. The team was over the moon for achieving that. And then I wanted to finish on some lessons learned. Account-based marketing, no matter at what level of this pyramid you end up wanting to play, it needs executive sponsorship, and you need people. Because it's a strategic decision. You can't, if you started alone as a marketing group or a division within a wider marketing organization, it's really hard. It's like pushing water up a hill, and you find you'll be setting yourselves up to failure. It's really important that you get this early engagement with the corporate leadership and get the endorsement and the buy-in, because that means they'll have understood how and why ABM can help, and that sets you up for a good success. You need to also keep your stakeholders engaged. That's something we always do. We have a post-engagement survey, so we actually ask sales, what was it like working with us while we are playing at eye level? And I keep telling my team, be service-minded but not servile. It's still, I consider it a service that we provide. And the first question we ask on that is the Net Promoter Score. How did you find working with us? And that's something we're keen on. And we feed that into our ongoing improvement program. And that also better sales and marketing collaboration, because there's constant checking for feedback, and then sales seeing where feedback came. We integrate it, just strengthens the relationship. And of course, because we're working with them at a time that's hugely important to them. So we have way more attention maybe than you get in other circumstances. And then finally, have some clearly defined SLAs and repeatable processes. The processes give you scale, of course. It also gives you consistency. And the defined SLAs, this is what I alluded to earlier. We have some rules of engagement. There are a few things that sales need to do in order to get our support. And in return to that, we, on the other hand, get them a fully bespoke marketing program for their deal. The marketing SPOC, so the pursuit marketer assigned, will bring other marketers from the wider corporation into the deal to really help bring the most relevant and the best that we have for this particular pursuit to bear for that team, and it can hold us accountable for that. So it's a very transparent and very result-oriented relationship that we have built with sales. And one thing we've learned over the years is the landscape is evolving, the toolscape is evolving, and so it helps if you thrive on change. And with that, I hand back to Sean, and thank you.
Great, Dorothea. Thank you so much. Great insight in how a big company takes advantage of ABM. And so we've got a bunch of questions from our listeners here, and I wanted to ask a few of them before we sign off. We've got about 15 minutes or so. So first question, I think ABM, and this is to John or Dorothea or both, I think ABM is often described as a B2B kind of operation. I'm wondering, can it be used for B2C?
Well, I think almost by definition, ABM is account-based, right, which is a B2B thing. Now, the principles of ABM of doing research on targeting specific entities, doing research to understand them, reaching out to them in a customized, bespoke, human way, those principles can apply to B2C, especially if it's kind of high value considered purchase B2C. But I think just by definition, the word ABM is a B2B word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with John, definitely, and he said the magic word. If you have something that is very high value, then yes, because then there is an extra investment in applying it. But to John's point, it's about accounts, and it's a business-based approach.
So here's another question from the audience, asking, why is ABM used mostly? Is it used to find A, new accounts, or B, to expand existing accounts? I'm assuming the answer is both, but I'm curious about what you guys think.
So if I go first, because I think John probably has a broader view of this, and it's easier for him to finish on this one. So in our case, it was very distinct decision to cross-sell, upsell into existing accounts. We are now adding some new logos where we think they're highly desirable because they could be a lighthouse account or because it's a market we want to get into. But on the whole, we opted to go into accounts where we already had some sort of footprint to then cross-sell, upsell. And that was also to do with the cost of acquiring the new accounts and the timeline to do so, because while ABM is a more longer-term approach or a strategic approach, we were trying to maximize or minimize the speed, the time to contract signature. That was our rationale. But there are other reasons out there to deploy a different approach.
John, do you have anything to add?
I think the larger your average contract value, the more likely it's going to be an focus on expand. The lower your ACV, the more likely you are to focus on driving new business. But I think it's, as I said, it can be used for new business, creating new pipeline, nurturing existing opportunities, and expanding relationships. All three.
Okay. So, John, your photograph of you on the beach caused quite a stir. Somebody was wondering what...
At least I had my shirt on.
Yes. What platform were you using to do that?
So that was using Engagio. That's something our platform enables.
Okay, fantastic. So another question from the audience. So if you have 5 target accounts, say, is it practical or even possible to automate ABM if you have an account, a number of account targets that small?
I wouldn't.
Go ahead, Dorothea.
The whole thing about ABM is that it's highly bespoke. If you say automate, we're talking programmatic, which means you want thousands of accounts to be viable. But the whole point of ABM, it's bespoke, it's high touch, and it's the opposite of automation to me.
Yeah, again, that was the point I tried to make. Automation is the wrong word in ABM, and I think orchestration is the right word. I.e., if you've got lots of even if it's only 5 accounts, if you have lots of people on your team doing lots of different things to lots of different people on their team, it's perfectly reasonable to think about a process, and making sure that the right people are doing the right things at the right time, whether that's approving an email from a beach or doing something different. But automation is the wrong mindset, absolutely.
But at the same time, if you're doing this, you're using a lot of tools.
You're just using orchestration tools, not automation tools.
Yeah. So here's an interesting question. What role, if any, should the customer journey play in mapping an ABM program? Dorothea, do you have some thoughts on that?
Sorry, I was on mute. Of course, that's back to my point I made earlier about the right content at the right time. So the customer journey, if someone is at the beginning of the customer journey, they're looking for different content. So it's about tying that content to the journey. Yes, since we're focusing at the very end, that isn't so much of a question for us because that is literally just the last mile push that we're providing.
All right. John, do you have anything to add to that about
Nope.
The role of customer
right content, journey? The right content at the right time. It's that's what it's all about.
So here's a question for both of you. Any advice on ways that you have penetrated siloed departments in current accounts to spread awareness of the varied products and services that you sell? So I guess the question is about cross-sell and upsell. Are there some specific techniques you use to break through the silos?
Yeah, I think again, this is a perfect use case for the concept of orchestration. You don't want to just drop, other departments from your best customers into some random automated nurture, right? That's not the right way to work with your customers. I think, what does work well, again, are sort of bespoke campaigns that leverage the success you've had with the group you're working with to get introductions and, drive activity into the other departments. Whether that's warm emails from your champion or, a less specific kind of case study that's, you've written exactly, for that particular company and how they're using you. It's the same theme that we've been talking about for the last hour. ABM works when it's customized and when it's relevant, and you can get that level of customization and relevance by focusing just on the accounts that matter.
Anything to add, Dorothea?
No, I agree with John. What we try and avoid is actually circumvening groups. So we focus on IT, and usually while the buying centers are changing, landscapes changing, get more business buyers now also buying IT. What we try and do is partner with the CIO in any given company to then help him penetrate those other departments and silos rather than working around him or her to get our own sales. That is something we do, and that's our chosen modus operandi there.
All right, another question from the audience, and this one's, I think, directed specifically at you, John. It's around your concept of measuring the time that people spend with you as a marketer. So how do you measure engagement minutes and time on direct mail campaigns, similar to the one that you had shared in your example?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's a thing that people get confused by. So just because we do something to you, that doesn't mean you've created any engagement. And so we only want to track things that you kind of things that you do in response. So we don't track any engagement for the fact we sent the package. But what we're hoping for is that you reply to an email or you come to our website or things like that. And when we see those things, that's how we're tracking the engagement. So yes, we do miss out. Like if I send you my book and you literally take the physical paper out of the box and read the physical paper, I can't track that. But again, if it's working, I'm going to see something. I'm going to see an email reply or a web visit.
Okay, so another question. We've got time for maybe two more. This is a question about really complicated corporations. So do you have any tips, and maybe Dorothea, this is for you, do you have any tips when it comes to tagging companies under an ultimate parent company, like individual brands under a big parent company?
Yeah, that is complex, and it's actually a challenge that we have we still encounter, especially a few years ago. One of the elements that we use is account-based advertising, and there, because the numbers, even when we did 1 to few, were relatively low, I actually went and vetted every alias for the companies that we were targeting with a particular vendor. We've just switched to using Dunn's numbers, Dun & Bradstreet numbers, to identify accounts that now link our Salesforce and our Eloqua instance together. And with that, we're actually able to target, when we're looking at at customizing our web page, for example, with a little welcome banner for a company. Duns are very good at the hierarchy of the account, and if we target via the Duns number versus just maybe a corporate IP address or a corporate group, that allows us to customize down to a specific group company. But it's something that is still causing us some headaches when we get to the semi-automated or the IT-based approach there. Of course, when you take things offline, that's much, much easier. But at the moment, just looking at e-targeting, that is a headache. But we're testing this out, and it seems to be working quite well for us at the moment.
All right. So one last question. I'd like to get input from both of you on this. What's the best process for picking target accounts? And we've only got like a couple minutes left, so I guess 45-second answers on how to pick the best accounts. Any advice?
Yeah, I mean, quickly, I think you want to look at both fit and engagement. So fit is how well are those accounts aligned to your ideal customer profile. And in terms of the deals that you think you can drive really big results in easily. But it's also, I think, important to look at the engagement from the account. Because all things being equal, two equally good fits, but one is more engaged, is going to be better. And then the last thing I'll point out is sales has to own the process. I think if sales doesn't actually feel like they picked the accounts, they won't be bought into the process.
Yeah, that's perfect answer. We actually have sales as an eliminator. So once we've identified going away from the pursuit marketing, because that is slightly different. If we go to our 1 to few, we have sales jointly picked with marketing the right accounts based on the fit, based on the plan for the year. Account engagement is a big differentiator, or a big reason to pick an account. And ultimately, if we find a sales team doesn't engage with marketing, doesn't get the value we can add, assuming we've put smart marketers in working with sales, and folks who can engage at eye level and understand business processes, then those teams don't get picked. They're simply eliminated from the program, or they're not getting invited to join the program because we don't have the time and the resources to try and do a hard sell to sales when there are other account teams who get it, who want to collaborate with us.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dorothea. Thank you, John. That's all the time we have for today. So I hope you all found some actionable insights from today's presentation, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you.